In a dramatic escalation of the ongoing conflict, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has issued a stern warning. Russia is prepared to make the United States and the United Kingdom suffer if they allow Ukraine to use Western-made missiles to strike deep inside Russian territory. This statement marks a pivotal moment in the conflict, potentially shifting the dynamics of global security and raising the specter of a broader confrontation that could involve multiple world powers. In today's video, we will unpack the implications of Lavrov's threat, delve into Russia's broader strategy, and explore how this fits into the evolving geopolitical landscape. We'll also examine the role of BRICS and other global actors in this high-stakes game of brinkmanship. Before we dive into today's topic, take a moment to subscribe to our channel as we grow and inform you of the latest updates and insights on the world's most pressing developments. The significance of Russia's statement, Lavrov's warning, is not just a spontaneous outburst. It is a calculated move designed to achieve several objectives. First, it serves as a deterrent. By threatening severe consequences, Russia hopes to dissuade the US and UK from providing Ukraine with more advanced weaponry. Lavrov's message is clear. Any escalation in Western support could trigger a direct response from Moscow. Second, this statement is a form of psychological warfare. By invoking the possibility of making the US and UK suffer, Russia aims to sow fear and uncertainty among Western policymakers and their domestic audiences. The goal is to create hesitation and doubt about the wisdom of continued military support for Ukraine, potentially weakening the resolve of Western governments. But there is another dimension to consider. Lavrov's comments could also reflect a sense of desperation. The war in Ukraine has not gone according to plan for Russia. The initial goal of a quick victory has given way to a protracted and costly conflict with significant losses on both sides. Western sanctions have crippled parts of the Russian economy, and diplomatic isolation has left Moscow with fewer allies. In this context, Lavrov's warning could be a sign that Russia feels cornered and is willing to take extreme measures to avoid defeat. To fully grasp the gravity of Lavrov's statement, we need to understand the broader context of the Ukraine conflict and its evolution. When Russia launched its invasion of Ukraine in February 2022, it was driven by a combination of strategic, historical, and geopolitical factors. Moscow aimed to prevent Ukraine from aligning more closely with NATO and the European Union, institutions it views as threats to its sphere of influence. However, the invasion has not gone as planned. Instead of achieving a swift victory, Russia has faced fierce resistance from the Ukrainian military, bolstered by Western support. The West, particularly the US and UK, has responded with a wide range of sanctions targeting Russia's economy and oligarchs alongside substantial military aid to Kyiv. This has included the provision of high-tech weaponry such as HIMARS rocket systems and anti-tank missiles, which have been instrumental in Ukraine's counteroffensive. As the conflict has dragged on, both sides have become more entrenched. Russia has annexed parts of Ukrainian territory, while the West has doubled down on its support for Kyiv. The result is a dangerous stalemate, with neither side willing to back down. Lavrov's recent threat must be seen against this backdrop of mounting frustration and the increasing likelihood of a protracted conflict. Lavrov's warning is not an isolated event. It is part of a broader Russian strategy aimed at achieving several key objectives. First and foremost, Russia seeks to prevent Ukraine from becoming a fully integrated member of Western institutions like NATO and the EU. Moscow views Ukraine's Western alignment as a direct threat to its security and influence in the region. By threatening to retaliate against the US and UK, Russia hopes to create a chilling effect on Western support for Ukraine, thereby slowing or reversing Ukraine's integration with the West. Second, Russia is trying to reassert its status as a global power. The Kremlin wants to demonstrate that it cannot be easily isolated or ignored, even by the world's most powerful nations. Lavrov's threat is a way of signaling that Russia remains a formidable force, capable of striking back against its adversaries. This is a message aimed not just at the West, but also at other global players, particularly in regions where Russia still has significant influence, such as the Middle East and Africa. Finally, Russia is looking to shift the narrative and frame itself as a victim of Western aggression. By threatening retaliation, Moscow seeks to portray the West as the aggressor, using Ukraine as a proxy to wage a larger geopolitical struggle against Russia. This narrative is intended to resonate with non-Western countries, many of whom are wary of Western dominance and are sympathetic to calls for a more multipolar world order. The escalation of tensions between Russia and the West also intersects with the strategic interests of the BRICS bloc. While BRICS is not a military alliance, it is a significant economic and political grouping that seeks to provide an alternative to Western-dominated global institutions. In recent years, BRICS has been increasingly vocal on issues related to global governance, trade, and finance, often advocating for a multipolar world order. Russia, as a founding member of BRICS, sees the bloc as a critical platform to counterbalance Western influence. Lavrov's recent statement could be interpreted as a signal to his BRICS partners, emphasizing Russia's resolve and strength in the face of Western pressure. China, for example, has criticized Western sanctions and has continued to trade with Russia, providing Moscow with a valuable economic lifeline. India, while maintaining a neutral stance on the conflict, has also increased its imports of Russian energy, demonstrating its interest in keeping open economic channels with Moscow. Moreover, the recent BRICS summit underscored the bloc's intention to expand and enhance its role in global affairs. The inclusion of 6 new countries, including energy giants like Saudi Arabia, suggests a move towards greater geopolitical relevance. For Russia, BRICS represents a strategic alliance where it can find diplomatic and economic support, even as it faces isolation from the West. Lavrov's threat can also be seen as a way to galvanize support within BRICS by framing Russia's struggle against the West as part of a broader push for a more equitable global order. How could BRICS countries respond? The response of BRICS countries to Lavrov's statement will be crucial in shaping the future course of the conflict. China, as Russia's most powerful partner in BRICS, may continue to provide diplomatic cover and economic support, helping Russia weather Western sanctions. Beijing has already called for a peaceful resolution to the conflict while opposing what it sees as unilateral sanctions by the West. If tensions escalate further, China might advocate for a diplomatic solution through BRICS channels, emphasizing the need for dialogue and a ceasefire. India's position is more complex. As a member of the Quad alliance with the US, Japan, and Australia, India is strategically aligned with the West on many issues. However, it also values its historical ties with Russia, particularly in defense and energy. India could leverage its unique position to act as a mediator, using its relationships with both the West and Russia to facilitate dialogue. Alternatively, India might continue its policy of non-alignment, maintaining a careful balance between its various strategic interests. Brazil and South Africa, both of which have economic ties with the West, may advocate for de-escalation to prevent further global instability. However, they are also likely to support calls for a more balanced approach that does not isolate Russia completely, aligning with their broader BRICS objective of promoting a multipolar world. As tensions continue to rise, the possibility of mediation becomes more critical. BRICS, with its diverse membership and strategic interests, could potentially play a constructive role in de-escalating the conflict. Countries like India, which maintain strong relations with both Russia and the West, are well positioned to act as intermediaries. India's long-standing policy of non-alignment and its recent increase in economic engagement with Russia, despite Western sanctions, position it uniquely as a potential bridge between the conflicting sides. Brazil, under President Lula da Silva, has also expressed a desire to foster dialogue and avoid further escalation. Brazil's diplomatic approach emphasizes multilateralism and peaceful resolution of conflicts aligning with the broader goals of BRICS. By leveraging its relationships within BRICS, Brazil could facilitate back-channel negotiations that might not be possible through more traditional Western or Russian diplomatic channels. South Africa, too, has a history of advocating for peaceful resolution and dialogue. As a country that underwent its transformation through negotiation and compromise, it might use its experience to encourage both Russia and the West to seek a diplomatic solution. This role could be particularly important in forums such as the United Nations, where South Africa has been an advocate for reform and more inclusive global governance. However, the effectiveness of any mediation effort by BRICS will depend on several factors, including the willingness of the West and Russia to engage in dialogue, the cohesion within BRICS itself, and the ability of its members to maintain a neutral stance that is acceptable to all parties. While it is uncertain whether BRICS can fully mediate this conflict, its involvement could help provide a platform for dialogue and reduce the risk of further escalation. Beyond the immediate military implications, Lavrov's threat has significant economic repercussions that could affect global markets. The mere possibility of escalation could lead to heightened uncertainty in global financial markets, triggering volatility in stocks, bonds, and commodity prices. Markets have reacted nervously to past geopolitical tensions involving Russia and the West, and this new development could exacerbate these fears. Energy markets, in particular, could face severe disruptions. Russia is one of the world's largest producers of oil and natural gas, and any retaliatory actions targeting Western energy infrastructure or supply routes could lead to skyrocketing prices. This would not only impact Europe, which remains heavily dependent on Russian gas, but also have a ripple effect across global markets, affecting everything from transportation costs to food prices. Sanctions could also intensify, with the West potentially targeting additional sectors of the Russian economy. However, such measures could have unintended consequences, such as driving up global inflation or disrupting supply chains already strained by the COVID-19 pandemic and other geopolitical tensions. Meanwhile, Russia might respond by accelerating its own economic measures, such as cutting off gas supplies to Europe or expanding its trade relations with non-Western countries like China and India, further fragmenting the global economic order. In addition to the military and economic dimensions, Lavrov's statement plays a crucial role in the information war that accompanies the Ukraine conflict. Both Russia and the West are vying for global public opinion, using media, diplomatic channels, and international platforms to shape perceptions and narratives. While some BRICS members might align more closely with Russia's view of resisting Western hegemony, others are cautious about endorsing any stance that could undermine their own strategic autonomy or domestic stability. This complex information landscape will continue to shape international responses to Lavrov's threat and the broader conflict. The stakes in this conflict have never been higher. Lavrov's threat to make the US and UK suffer if Ukraine uses Western-made missiles to strike Russia marks a critical juncture in the Ukraine war and a potential turning point in global geopolitics. As tensions escalate, the risk of miscalculation grows, and the consequences of any escalation could be catastrophic. BRICS countries, with their unique positions in global politics, have the potential to play a mediating role, but they face their own internal challenges and strategic calculations. The coming weeks and months will be crucial in determining whether the world steps back from the brink or heads toward a more dangerous and uncertain future.